All right, people, so the long-awaited video on how to set up the Zeeltronic to the ignition system on a 250R, and here it is. Now, I did part one, which goes over a bunch of the stuff that you need to know, but we're going to talk about the physical elements of getting this on here. So the first thing that you need to do, and Kelsey, come over and take a look at this, we need to set up the static angle. See this right up here? Static angle. Now I already have that in there at 50 degrees, but I'm going to show you how to do this, okay? Now, you may not have all this stuff here at home, but let me show you a trick. Come over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring the piston to top dead center. Okay, that's top dead center right there. Now come over here. And you can see right down here, get a close up, where this says T, that's for top dead center, and that is lined up with this casting piece right here, okay? So that's the casting, the timing mark in the casting, and this is top dead center. Okay, so now we've got that at top dead center. We're gonna come over here. Now on this, obviously you're not gonna be able to do this on your OEM motor unless you pull the side cover off, but I've got the timing wheel on this mounted on this side because it's just more convenient. So we're at 0 degrees. Now what we're going to do is back this up until this edge right here is in the very center of the trigger, and the trigger point, let me grab a flashlight here so I can show you. So right like that. So that this is in the center of the trigger, or in the center of, on the Honda ones, they have a round trigger point here. You want that in the very center. Now we're gonna go back over and we're gonna read that that is right at 50 degrees. So this static angle is from the front side of the trigger back to top dead center. Front side of the trigger back to top dead center in degrees, okay? So we're gonna come over here and we're gonna put that in. That's 50 degrees. Now the advance and the delay compensation is not necessary because we don't turn enough RPM to make that work. Pulses here is going to be 1, okay? And trigger mode is going to be 2, because the style of triggers that we use, the style of ignition system we use, we want to read both edges, both the leading edge and the trailing edge. Now, I've got the kickback protection numbers programmed in here. I am going to go ahead and put this up on my website so you can just download this, because this makes a really good starter curve, okay? And up here, I've got the rev limit set at like 15,000 RPM. The motor will never turn that much. But if you have the RPM or the rev limiter set too low on these, what happens is it doesn't do a direct cut out of the ignition when you get there. It starts to stutter the ignition. And so a lot of people confuse that for the bike being too rich. So I set this higher than I know what I'm going to rev. And then the shift kill time, because this actually has a shift kill. So if you are using an air shifter or if you're using a micro switch on your shifter, as soon as you start to lift it up, it'll kill the ignition for 30 milliseconds here and allow the bike to shift. So it acts like power shifting, okay? So where people run into problems is that on the Zeeltronic, in the wiring harness, you're going to have the trigger wires. It's going to have a green wire and on the Zeeltronic, it's going to have a green wire and a red wire. On OEM, you're going to have a green wire with a white stripe and a blue wire with a yellow stripe. What you need to make sure is that the green wire with the white stripe goes onto the green wire with the white stripe onto the Zeeltronic ignition, and the blue with the yellow stripe goes on whatever color is on the other side in the Zeeltronic. In most cases, it's going to be red and white. And this is so that the pulse profile is correct for the Zeeltronic, and I'll show you what that means. Okay, so the OEM ignition system and the Zeeltronic want to see the profile in the same orientation. So if you looked at this on an oscilloscope, what would happen is if this is wired correctly, it's going to go like this and then back up to here. It's going to be equal sizes. I didn't draw that right, but it'll go up first and then down. If it was to go the other direction, so it's going to go down and then back up, that would be wrong. That is why a bunch of the people that have these things and try to wire them up have problems with them kick-starting backwards. And I have an example here. Now, people ask me, what do I think about the Rick stator? And I think that the Rick stator is actually a very good stator. We use these all the time. But the triggers that are supplied sometimes come wired in a reverse orientation. So even though you would wire the green up to here, so it's green to green, and then the blue to blue and blue, the trigger is actually going to fire backwards. So if you get one that it's super hard, it's kicking you backwards and everything, or when you start it, it just basically wants to go, psh, psh, it doesn't run. I know that's my special effects there. It just sounds basically like it's farting. Take these two wires on the plug, stick a little tiny flat screwdriver in there, de-pin them, and reverse them over. Okay, so I have a lot of these come in. People are like, oh, I can't make them work. They're not working right. And literally all it is that this is, when they wired it up, they got the wires backwards inside of here. And so the waveform looks like this and not like this. So that's going to be one of the main problems there. So the best thing to do is to take off from a starter curve. And like I said, I'll put this on the website so people can download it. But you need to think about your ignition system just like you do a carburetor. If it can be tuned, then it can be optimized to work with the motor combination that you have. And that's the reason why I like the programmable Zeeltronic so much is, number one, I don't have any problems with them. They are not super expensive, and for me, they're easy to set up and they're easy to program, and it gives you just a ton of options in being able to program the thing. So, I mean, there's a lot of ignition systems out there that you can use, and I don't sell these things, okay? I do not sell these. So I'm telling you something that I believe in, not because I'm making money on it, but because I use these things all the time. Like I said, I don't have problems with them. Heck, my 130-pound daughter can start a Toiger with her shoes on, with her tennis shoes on. So if everything's set up right, they're gonna run really good. But anyways, if anybody has any questions, more questions, just drop them in the comment section and I'll see if I can get to answering them, hopefully before another year is out.